Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here. The DRF race of the day for Wednesday, August the 23rd, race number 7 at Saratoga. It's the John's Call, a restricted stake on the turf at 1 mile and 5/8. Let's take a look at this field. One main track only entrant on the far outside. That's the number 10 Mystic Knight. The restriction for this stake, these are for 4-year-olds and up, which have not won a grade 1 or grade 2 on the turf in 2023. Pioneering Spirit has been red hot for trainer Linda Rice. This one seeks his 5th straight win.
Yeah, they switched this horse to turf finally earlier this year, Dan. They keep throwing more at him every time he wins a race. They move him up. They give him more distance to work with. They give him some better horses to deal with. He handles it, and so far he's handled it really easily. This is another class test for this horse. Up into the stakes competition now. He's got to take on 2 more furlongs. We'll see how he handles all that. So far, since they've gotten him back to turf, he's been real good.
Let's take a look at the Timeform U.S. pace projector for this 13-furlong marathon. Burning Bright stretching out in distance off a couple of mile races, one on dirt, one on turf. The Reds is another horse trying turf for the first time. I think the 7 Tied to the Sea is going to show big speed, and I think he's going to make the lead.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Burning Bright will go forward in this race, and he's certainly got some speed, but Tied to the Sea, that kind of feels like his game, Dan. I thought they'd go to the lead with the 7. The 3 will be up there. Maybe we'll see what they do with Tawny Port, the 6, in his turf debut last time against way better horses. They actually got pretty aggressive with this horse, but he couldn't make the lead. Maybe they'll try for it again against this field.
Like Pioneering Spirit, the number 1 Good Skate seems to have improved since switching to the turf. He was second to Pioneering Spirit last time out at Saratoga. It was a situation where I thought all in all the race shape worked out for Good Skate. The pace was pretty solid. He got to the outside. He got up for second. Perhaps he's racing himself back into shape. 3rd start of the layoff for trainer Michael Maker, but he's got to tackle Pioneering Spirit again. It's got to take a little step up.
Yeah, I mean, I thought all in all, Dan, Irad did everything right last time. I think they knew Pioneering Spirit was the horse to beat. They followed him around the track. When Pioneering Spirit made his move, this horse got right out behind him, followed him into the stretch, and he just really couldn't make a race of it. I mean, it was a step in the right direction. He's got to do way better than that.
The 2 Seraphos also finished behind Pioneering Spirit at Saratoga. He was 4th. It was really the first time that Graham Motion had a chance to stretch this horse out. He was staying on a little bit at the end. Like Good Skate, he has to continue to improve.
I could be a little more lenient with this horse than I wanted to be with Good Skate, Dan, if only because, well, this horse was saving ground and he just sort of stayed towards the inside around that final turn. Pioneering Spirit, Good Skate got to the outside. They moved right past this horse to get into contention. And Seraphos had to wait for them to clear. Then he got to the outside, and he ran on okay. I'm not sure how good he is, but maybe he could improve a little bit here. He'll be a big price.
The 3 Burning Bright is certainly a contender in this race for trainer Norm Cassie. He is stretching out in distance. He's already won at 1.25 miles, albeit on the main track earlier in his career, and he's done some good work on the turf. 2 starts back in an $80,000 optional at Churchill Downs. He was in against a horse that came back to just missed in the cliffhanger at Monmouth with a 94 buyer, then won the Lure up at Saratoga with a 96. So he fits with these horses. Can he last the 13 furlongs? I have a feeling he can.
Yeah, I think he can too. I guess you'll never know that until they try it though, Dan. So we'll see. I'm not that worried about distance with him. I'm more worried about what kind of trip he's going to pull here. I think they'll go forward with him. I just felt like maybe he couldn't make the lead this time. And while I felt like he ran well 2 starts back, I didn't think it was, some kind of trip that was, too tough for him or the pace was too fast for him. He was only 2nd best in that race. Maybe more distance will really help this horse. I'm a fan of his. I'm just not sure if I want to bet him in here.
Here's Pioneering Spirit, a horse that's been on an absolute tear for Linda Rice. He has won 4 in a row, including this race, a 2nd-level allowance at Saratoga. He beats several of these runners, and he does it very kindly. Again, the pace was solid, but Pioneering Spirit was in full gear at the 3/16, and once he makes the lead, he wins very comfortably.
Yeah, he smashes this field. I mean, his 4 starts since Linda Rice finally got this horse back to turf, they've been really good, and they've all sort of looked like this. He's very handy in his races. Jose Ortiz always looks like he has a ton of horse under him. He gets him clear in the stretch, and this horse does the rest. He's been really good. Obviously, it's a new test for him, up in class again, longer distance again. You always have to worry yourself with Lasix is coming off now. All 4 of those wins have come with Lasix. That's another thing to consider, but it's hard to knock what he's done back on the grass.
Distance shouldn't be an issue for the number 5 British Royalty, who won the third Jewel of Canada's Triple Crown, the Breeders' Stakes, at a mile and a half on the turf back in 2021. He's coming off a useful effort, albeit with a very good trip, in the Belmont Gold Cup last time out, going 2 miles. Listen, Kazushi Kimura was able to save ground every step of this 2-mile journey. He's in behind the leader turning into the stretch. He's going to get through along the inside, and he's going to run an okay third. This was a pretty decent race. The winner, Siskany, is just a quality European stayer. You had Channel Maker get tired in here. He'd come back to win the Bowling Green with a 99 buyer.
This horse runs fine in here. The trip really worked out for him. It's the second year in a row that they came to New York for that Belmont Gold Cup. He ran well both times. Distance is no issue for this horse. It's interesting that you mentioned that Breeders that he won as a 3-year-old going a mile and a half, Dan, because that's the last time this horse won a race. It's almost 2 years ago. It's the only time he's ever won a race on the grass. His form has held up since then. He's run really well in some really nice races. He just hasn't found the winner's circle.
The number 6 is Tawny Port, who won the Ohio Derby last year when conditioned by Brad Cox. He made his turf debut last time out in the Bowling Green. He was wired by Channel Maker that day, but he was right up close to the pace, and he just couldn't sprint home with Channel Maker when it counted. It was his first start off a short layoff. Maybe Christophe Clement's got him on the program now, and we'll see an improved performance.
Yeah, we'll see. It looked like they wanted to maybe try to make the lead with him in that Bowling Green, Dan. They rode him right out of the gate, but Channel Maker was a little too quick for him. He sat up close, and he got pretty tired through the stretch. I guess all in all, for a turf debut, off of a layoff as well, to finish a pretty close fifth, 91 buyer. I guess that's okay. I wasn't blown away by the performance though.
The 7 is Tide of the Sea. He was a graded stakes winner going long at Gulfstream back in 2021. Just didn't really get that breather last time out in the Belmont Gold Cup going 2 miles. Probably it was too tough for him anyway from a class perspective, but he took a strong challenge when they hit the backstretch by L'Imperatore. He eventually shrugged that horse off, and then he got tired in the lane. I think he's going to show speed. He has some back class. The question is he in the form now that he needs to be in to win a race like this?
It's a fair question. I mean, I think maybe just based on the 2 starts off the layoff so far this year, Dan, maybe he is. I mean, you're right. I think he does have back races that would give him some kind of a chance in here. He ran fine, as far as I could tell, in that Belmont Gold Cup last time, going 2 miles. Before that, in the Fort Marcy, maybe the best race this horse has ever run on the early lead, lasting for second at a huge price in a grade 2. I don't know. His last 2 races to me are fine.
Cy Dog is the horse with perhaps the most upside potential of any in this race. I think we've seen the best from these horses. I'm not sure if we've seen the best from Cy Dog yet, who won the Transylvania for 3-year-olds last year and ran well in a limited campaign as 3. He was 4th in the Saratoga Derby. Now it's his 3rd start of the form cycle. He finished 3rd last time out at Colonial against some older horses. The distance, I think, is going to be okay for him, Mike. He just needs to find some of that 3-year-old form. And again, he just looks like a classic example of a horse racing himself back into form.
Yeah, I thought that too. And I actually think he's pretty interesting, stretching all the way out for this. Kind of feels like as a 3-year-old, Grand Motion wanted to get this horse into longer races. Unfortunately for him, his campaign was over the first week of August. His 2 races so far this year, I think they're pretty good. I mean, that first race off the layoff, he had no chance in that race trying to come from last. He couldn't get out into the clear through the stretch. He finished last, but he was racing on at the end of that race. Last time, I thought he ran pretty well there. I mean, he couldn't threaten the 1-2 finishers, but he was staying at the end of that race. I think he might get this distance.
Trying turf for the first time is the number 9, The Reds, who was claimed out of his most recent start by trainer Joe Sharp and will now try turf for the first time. And I think there's enough turf pedigree in here. I don't love the tonalists on grass, but they'll stay all day long. And this one's a half to a graded stakes place turf miler. The Reds has acted his entire career like he's a horse that wants distance, distance, distance. Oh, he'll get it here. Whether he's good enough to win his turf debut against some quality turf marathoners, that's a different issue.
Yeah, I don't know that I could take him. I'm with you. I mean, I guess there's enough turf pedigree there to feel like he'll handle this surface. I've, like you, always thought of him as a horse who wanted more distance. So I guess I won't concern myself with that. I just don't know that this is the race that I would want to bet him in.
And the 10 Mystic Knight is entered main track only. If this race is washed off, he is an automatic contender. Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the John's Call. Mike, you're going with Pioneering Spirit, and why not? He's the hot hand. He's won 4 in a row. And Saratoga, this turf course, not a problem for him at all.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. It's another step up in class for him. No Lasix this time and more distance. So maybe this is the time to take a shot against him. I've been pretty taken with what he's done since he's back on turf, though, Dan. I'm going to stay right with him in this race.
I know British Royalty hasn't reached the winner's circle since that 2021 Breeders' Stakes. It's been a long time between drinks. I just think from a class perspective, he fits this race to a T. I think he's at his best when you take him back and make one run. So I'm hoping there is at least a little bit of hitting in the early portion of this mile and 5/8 event. 4852 for Mike, 5684 for me. It's the John's Call, your Wednesday race of the day at the Spa. Good luck.